Welcome to Saturday Story Time. I'm sitting in another spot and I'm sitting out in my front yard. The front of my house sort of reminds me of, oh, you've read these stories about the grand mansions and then the people get old and the windows crack and the doors don't fit right and things like that. Well, our front yard is sort of overgrown and wild, and it reminds me of that because we're getting older. But I wanted to sit out here for one thing. It smells wonderful. There's some flower blooming right now that just puts out the most beautiful perfume. So anyway, welcome to Saturday Story Time. Last week I told you about our really horrendous trip to get over in all of the storms. Well, we're there, and of course the first thing that we have to do was to make ready where we were going to initially live or camp out, because that's not where we lived most of the time. But we had to live in the downstairs apartment first off. And then the next really big thing was to get Tom's shop set up, because this is going to be how we're going to make a lot of our living, with his shop. And eventually it's the most of our living probably. Okay, then we have to decide, because the downstairs is pretty open, we have to decide his space and my space to put the Lawrence shop. And so those two things. And when we did set up my store, I just want to tell you that I sold fabric. I had 2 sewing machines in the store. I always, when I sewed a lot, I used 2 sewing machines. It's really convenient when you don't have to change bobbins and threads when you're making something that maybe has more than one color thread. So I always found it really nice. Maybe one I would just zigzag on and one was straight stitch, but that was really convenient. So anyway, it was set up and I was selling fabric besides the other things. So the wall, sort of an L shape where we had the fabric, it's wallpapered with fabric is what we did. And it really looked sharp. We took the cloth, and if you notice the salvage edges of cloth, they run a certain way. Well, you can put that just like wallpaper, and that's what we did. And so I know that we had that done within 2 months because of what I'm reading in here. Yeah, we have been a residence of council for 2 months now. Okay, the other thing that I want to tell you, that in this town, there was a man who was a very good carpenter, and he owed us money. So we bartered. You come and help us get this building into shape, and that will take off what you owe us. Well, one of the first things he did, when they were looking the building over, the very front of the building, and it was an all brick building, but at one time there had been an earthquake quite a ways away, but it had left still a crack in the building and probably shifted some things, and it was to shore up the front of the building so it wouldn't fall out on the street ever. So that was one of the first things. And then putting on our porch, that was sort of a wraparound because we were on a corner and had the Victorian post to it. It was very pretty, cute little porch. And then up above, oh, I'm sorry, I picked a bad time to do this. Oh well, I'm out in the front. Squeak, squeak. Okay, where was that? Oh, he built sort of a veranda looking thing, and it was in front of our kitchen windows, or where the kitchen was, and it's where Tom and I sat and ate, and we could look out on that. And then for certain occasions, I could put banners and whatnot and dress up that little area. So it was really neat, and I liked sitting there and looking down onto the main street. Okay, and so actually, I'm telling you ahead because we didn't get up into that kitchen for a while. So forget the top of the building. We're just concentrating on the bottom of the building. And that's where we are in a couple of months. We've been concentrating, opening a store, a shop, getting his wood shop set up. And this is some of the things that I wrote during that time. We have been residents of this small town now for 2 months and are feeling more at home. I took a walk this evening and I remembered a little prayer I had whispered 12 years ago to God, who is ever faithful and never forgets. We were leaving Idaho, moving to our Oregon home in Mahama, Oregon, and it was then that I inwardly cried out to God that He would someday bring us back to Idaho. However, over the years, as our family grew and our roots deepened with our friends and our church family, I forgot my prayer. But God had not forgotten. He brought us back. I am overwhelmed at times with the beauty I see around me and the enjoyment I find in my little shop in downtown Council. Here are some of the things I would have missed if we hadn't come. I've told you the name of the place twice. I said to myself, I'm not going to say the name, but I did. Anyway, here are some of the things I missed if I hadn't come. I would have missed making a crown for a special Catholic spring service. I'm not Catholic, but they asked me to do this because I had the fabric, I had the sewing machines, and I knew how. And even though I wasn't Catholic, I felt it was an honor, and I did it as unto the Lord. As a favor, I also hemmed the tablecloths for the bishop's luncheon. I would have missed out too on mending Bob's shirt. Bob was a man in his 70s. He checks up on us every day, well, about 3 times a week, and gives us words of wisdom and leaves us with a chuckle. And so I got to mend his shirt. I would have missed my hour or two of early morning walks while the town is still sleeping. I walk through the lilac-scented streets into the countryside to stop now and then to pet the soft nose of a horse and her colt, to watch the sky change colors, view the distant mountains, smell the fresh green fields nodding in soft morning breezes, or pick a dew-covered wildflower blooming at my feet. I would have missed watching a flock of geese fly through the early morning rainbow in a storm-threatening sky, and especially I would have missed an early morning walk with our son Matt on his last visit. Hand in hand we walked, not only as mother and son, but also as brother and sister in God's family, praying and sharing together. But I didn't miss these times and blessings. I was here, back in Idaho. And so that's the end of this story. And I just want to remind you, this is the day the Lord has made. Rejoice and be glad in it. And He says, again, rejoice. So that is the end. I'm going to turn the camera around and you can see my wild front yard that is truly neglected. So have a great day. Come again next Saturday.